There's so many positive things I want to say about this movie that it's hard to know where to start. I mean, I guess we should probably get the superficial stuff out of the way by praising the visuals. And believe me, they deserve to be praised. Villeneuve has always been good at turning the screen into his canvas, producing visually striking scenes and landscapes that stay with you long after the movie's over. And Dune 2 might be his finest work to date.
And as terrible as it was for the entertainment industry, the strikes from last year were actually a good thing for the winners of this year's Oscars for Best Visual Effects, Best Sound, Best Cinematography, because odds are those prizes would have gone to the people that worked on Dune Part 2 if it hadn't been delayed and pushed out of 2023.
From the subversion of the hero's journey and the complex power dynamics to depictions of a futuristic war on a faraway planet, Dune Part 2 will be remembered as a monumental achievement, not just within the sci-fi genre, but a true cinematic achievement.
We're going to devote our energies to sports and gardening, all the cultural pursuits as far as they're concerned. In fact, we're going to put the goons to sleep. Meanwhile, we dig.
Here we go again.
Greetings and welcome to the Anadrome. This is Burn Power coming to you from Tbilisi, Georgia, where I just returned from seeing Dune Part 2, and I was quite struck with the film. What I'm going to do here is not a review. There are many people doing reviews. Just to name a few, I would recommend going and watching Dan Murrell or The Critical Drinker or Impression Blend with Mariana, who all have different takes on movies, different than mine, and yet they all agree this is one for the books. What is important about this film? What I want to get to is something that I noticed while I was watching the film. I was really struck that this was a film for 2024 and beyond. And I didn't feel that way so much about the first one, because that just struck me, as it struck many people, as just a setup. It was just, the film series was being set up. Denis Villeneuve was the director, French-Canadian director. He directed Blade Runner 2049, Arrival, a great science fiction film, both of them very good. Sicario, an excellent border crime film, and of course, the first Dune back in 2021. The film stars Timothée Chalamet. I don't know why we say Timothée Chalamet, though. I know why the Chalamet, but his name has an accent grave, which should be Timothée, but we're in America. I'm in America. Well, actually, I'm not, but I'm an American, so we'll go with Timothée Chalamet, and he plays the main character, Muad'Dib. That's actually the pronunciation from the David Lynch version, where it was always like Muad'Dib, and it was just kind of said back here. And he plays Paul Atreides, who is this messianic figure. Timothée Chalamet, for the first time in seeing a movie, and I just saw him in Wonka about a month ago, I enjoyed him in that. He's a likable actor. But in this piece, I think he brought his A game to the table for the first time, seriously. I mean, he's been good in other films, good enough to be up for an Academy Award. But from my thinking, this film really has a lot more psychological depth. And what you see him doing during the course of this film is stripping off the childhood naivete and ending up as a character quite conflicted, setting up what will undoubtedly be a sequel, I hope, Dune Messiah. Rebecca Ferguson, whom I have appreciated in quite a few films, from Dr. Sleep, where she plays this woman who walks around in a... When you just see the character, you say, she looks like she's a renegade from a Grateful Dead concert bus or something. And yet she's really evil in it. She was, I think, one of, if not the best character from the Mission Impossible series from the last few films. And her death really created quite a stir because it wasn't done in such a way as to be with the gravitas it needed, which leads me to suspect maybe she's not dead and we didn't see everything. But in this film, I don't know what she's doing, but it's amazing. And she is basically transformed into what's called the Reverend Mother, which is a top-level priestess in the Bene Gesserit order of this strange cult of the spice that everyone is looking for. But she starts off being really concerned about going through this ritual, and then ends up, I mean, when you see her, and she's got, I don't know if they're henna or tattoo, probably tattoos according to the film, she ends up being this character. There's something that happens, not just the fact that her eyes turn blue, which they probably all were already, but they heighten the blueness. But it's something in her character makes her this extremely mysterious, really unpredictable person. Speaking of which, there are 3 or 4 other women in this film who also hit this note of really mysterious unpredictability. Florence Pugh is in it. She's not so mysterious. She seems to have a grasp on the political realities of this world. In the beginning, her costume looks like something inspired by 1920s flappers, but by the time she gets to the last costume in the film, she starts to take on a very unusual, again, mysterious is the best way I can put it, although less mysterious than these other 2 characters I'm about to mention. Léa Seydoux plays Margot, Lady Fenring of the Bene Gesserit. And she is a seductress. I mean, they have an order of seductresses, evidently, who go and test men. And there's something about the way she sits and watches this competition, and then later gets involved with one of the characters that makes you just go like, oh, what's going on here? Because her it's very French, don't you know? and in fact, the French-Canadian and French connection here leads me to suspect, the French have a different approach to seduction than we do in the Anglosphere. And there's something coming out of her eyes that's just quite powerful. Or maybe the rule here is if you're European, you're more mysterious. Also, Charlotte Rampling plays another Reverend Mother, and she is quite good. And if you've ever seen Charlotte Rampling in a 1970s film, she has that weird unearthly vibe as well. Over the years, she's settled from being this really strangely seductive role into being these very solid, but she's always got this deep sorrow in her eyes, which I don't know where it comes from. And then, for literally less than 2 minutes in the film, Anya Taylor-Joy shows up as Alia Atreides, Paul's unborn sister. I'm not going to explain it, but she too has this aura. There's something that's just in these women who are all connected to the Bene Gesserit. There's something going on here that's very much, in my mind, through my studies of symbolist imagery, definitely coming out of the symbolist school of art from the end of the 19th, beginning of the 20th century, and hits this strange note of mystery and menace. I won't go as far as to say femme fatale, but you get the idea. Now, there is one female character totally different, and that is played by Zendaya, whom I have seen in a couple of Spider-Man films. Didn't see her in the Euphoria television series, in which evidently she's pretty good. But she actually does a very good job here. I haven't been impressed with her up till now. I'm not going to go into the relationship between her and Paul Atreides, Timothée Chalamet's character, but we'll just say she kind of contains a good section of the heart of the film. Then we have the Harkonnens, and we've got Dave Bautista, former wrestler, doing the Beast Raban, and he is seriously menacing. He brings his wrestling chops, but for more than just a romp in the ring, we'll say that. Of course, you've got Stellan Skarsgård, who actually, I would say he's chewing the scenery as the Baron Harkonnen, very differently from the David Lynch version, which was much more like bizarre. This is just menacing. I mean, imagine Marlon Brando in Apocalypse Now being dumped in vats of oil and smoking a hookah. And everything he says is just menacing. But the real standout here is Austin Butler, whom we last saw as Elvis Presley in the movie Elvis, Baz Luhrmann's film. He knocks it out of the park playing Fade. He is one of the upper echelon of the Harkonnens. He is just, after seeing him in Elvis, I would have no idea this was the same guy. And in terms of playing an evil character, he did a great job as Elvis Presley. He out-evils the Baron, who is one of the most evil characters ever in a film, but Austin Butler's Fade is on another level. And quite interesting, very different from the more campy version of this character played by Sting in David Lynch's version. Josh Brolin does a great job as Gurney Halleck. A very workmanlike performance. Josh Brolin doing Josh Brolin stuff very well. Oh, Javier Bardem as Stilgar. That's a great performance as well. Now, I'm not going to go into all of the plot details. Like I said, there are plenty of people who are reviewing this film. Do you need to see Dune to get this? It would really help. But no, I would say you could go in this, you'd be thrown in off the deep edge. But here's the thing, the film was like 2 hours and 45 minutes long, we'll say, and I didn't feel the time at all. It just was thing after thing after thing, very engaging all the way through. But here's what I want to say. You should really go see this film, support it, because, for two reasons. One, we need films like this back in theaters. The Marvel era is over. The rule of Disney is for the time being over. The fake Star Wars films, they're over. Yeah, someone's going to try to make more of them, but the dominance of these things, it's over. And everyone's afraid of anything else that they put out in the name of this until they get back to something like the original, Marvel or Star Wars characters. And they've done the same thing to Star Trek, and they've done the same thing to all of these. They've turned them into lesser things. This, however, doesn't have any of the postmodern ironic campiness. Doesn't have any more of that winking at you kind of thing that these other films were doing. I really loved Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. I really enjoyed the Thor, or some of the other characters. I'm not a Marvel geek, so I don't keep track of them in my head and didn't write them down in preparation for this. But what I want to say is this. This film is something very different. And like I say, I think the first film was just a warm-up for this, because this film hits the times. As farcically strange as these times are, we are in very seriously dark times. And dark times require us to watch movies that help us to understand where we are. And this film, I could see this film in the hands of the Disney Corporation, being turned into the hero's journey. This ain't the hero's journey. This is what happens if you leave the camera running after the end of the hero's journey. And that is, you start to get the darker notes. You start to hit the corruption. And we live in a time where left and right feels very corrupted. Where it's hard to know, are there any heroes out there? And do our heroes ultimately turn into our nightmares? Because that often does happen in these days. So, what I think is important about this film is the following. I think the drama is great, especially if you've seen the first film, and you really should. I think the acting is amazing. The costumes absolutely fit this film and are deep. A lot of work done on them. The cinematography, absolutely. If this film had been released in 2023, it would probably have won all the cinematography and special effects categories, because it's better than everything that came out in 2023. Denis Villeneuve has proved himself to be a real director. That is to say, someone with a unique vision. He loves science fiction. This is his fourth science fiction film, and it's very serious. Actually, I was going to think of Prisoners and Enemy, but we'll say fourth. Certainly fourth big budget science fiction film. That world of the teens, of the both the kind of frivolous nature of superhero films and the kind of endless fantasy and stuff, it has to end. But also the politically correct stuff has to end. This film doesn't hit the message, to quote the critical drinker. This film hits, I think, something very true about human nature. I do have a few little gripes about the film. One of them is the use at least 2 or 3 times of the word fundamentalist. And I'm to describe the people in the desert who live in the South, that they're more fundamentalists. And my feeling is using that word outside of the Christian context is always a problem. I noticed the media had been really good at calling the Islamists, now they use the word Islamists, rather than fundamentalist Islam, whatever, Islam, fundamentalist Islamites, whatever. The point is, fundamentalist is very specifically related to the theological war between the liberal interpretation of the Bible and a literal interpretation of the Bible. I'm not getting into this here. It's complicated. But to apply this to something that is not. Now, here's what someone who knows the Dune novels can tell me. Does the word fundamentalist apply in the novel Dune to the Southern Fremens? I'm guessing it doesn't, because I never started hearing that word applied to people outside of the Christian circles until at least the late 80s. So you tell me about that. But anyway, that's the only thing. Because there is this thing, religion is dangerous. There is that little spike of a thing in there. But the truth is, everything's dangerous. I've seen The Lord of the Rings turned into a cult when I was younger, and that scared me, and I loved The Lord of the Rings. And of course the Bible gets turned into cults every day. I would rather they use the word cultist. They're more cultists. But, we'll give them that postmodern faux pas. But apart from that, absolutely amazing movie. Just go see it. I mean, there are other things you could nitpick, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not here to give you the plot. I'm not here to ruin anything. I'm just saying, go see this movie. And I think this is a sign of where movies are going and what movies should be moving towards in the 2020s. And we'll leave it there. This is Byrne in Tbilisi saying thanks for listening, and you can subscribe, you can become a member, and you can actually support the channel as the Georgians say, drobi, which just means temporarily. We'll just be gone from each other just a little while, and then we'll see each other again.
When I go, I want you to give me 5 minutes. I told you, boys, I'm no escape artist. For the first time, I like the odds.
At the round earth's imagined corners, blow your trumpets, angels, and arise, arise from death, you numberless infinities of souls.